welcome back to the Beirut Banyan.
Thanks, Ronnie. It's great to pick your brain.
The last time I spoke to you, you were running for elections in Beirut 2 district, and you were running at that point in time with the Beirut Medinati list. The day we recorded, you went independent. And I think that's the beginning of our friendship. I defined you in those terms back then. In addition to your academic career, you're an architect. But that's 2022. 2.5 years later, how would you define yourself right now? It's a stupid question to ask, but it's an important one. Because I struggle to say what I do for a living. I'd like to hear how you define yourself.
Thanks, Ronnie. This is the mother of all questions. I'm an architect. I'm a landscape architect and an urbanist. I'm also an educator, formerly at AUB and USG. I would love to teach again. And I'm a politically active human being, citizen, lover of Lebanon. And sadly, I'm someone who just lost her mom a year ago, writing her biography. And I'm also a dreamer, I think. And without the dream of this place becoming better, I think I'll be doomed.
And you're politically active the whole way through. I think that probably is the way I would describe you. On a good day and a bad day.
Yeah, I mean, your strength is your weakness. I think I've been trying to find ways to get out of this since I was a child, but then, learning more about how I was raised, and my mother especially, I'm realizing that I feel that this place is somehow a responsibility and that we can't just leave it. And I hear that from a lot of people. But it's tough. It's tough to continue. It's tough to stay. It's an emotional toll on your body, on your psyche. But there's still, on a good Sunday, especially in Beirut, on a good rainy Sunday after the rain, just Beirut is amazing. If we just had more stability at all levels. I think a lot of people have said, even though they weren't, I know nothing about the army. I don't know anything about Joseph Aoun. His speech, his how do you say, like, inauguration speech?
His inauguration speech.
His inauguration speech was reassuring, was clear. I could see like tangible steps or a direction. He seems to be, a respectful human being, a modern man. And these things are important for me as someone who's, living in this time, to have someone to start their speech with Sayyidati wa Sadati. Honestly, it reflects. Now we're going to go to conspiracy theories or to al-arar al-khariji, whatnot. So again, we're in a place that's very complex and very layered. So having a human being, having a clear set of objectives was reassuring to me and a lot of people.
That's Joseph Aoun.
Yes.
I feel the same way about especially that speech.
Yes.
And the initial meetings that he demanded.
Yes.
No one have any exceptions. He forced Hezbollah.
Exactly. So when
was it 5 o'clock?
When the bloc, when the parliamentary bloc requested a postponement for the next day, the answer was no. And this is like, at least in my lifetime, unprecedented.
No,
correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I don't remember. I think because the condition was so in the opposite direction that people never expected a president to stand up in any way to Hezbollah. And even if it's just a symbolic thing, even if it's just publicity stunt,
of course,
it makes a difference.
Yes, and also having a military figure just after this war with the ceasefire agreement and with the looming 1701 and 1559.
1559, which is not being...
yes, but I mean just having a military figure who seems not to have... I mean, a lot of my friends, those that you criticized, the Suwad, back then, remember? A lot of them, so when I ask them,
on the record, you criticize them too.
I do, of course. I criticize myself.
I never criticize you.
No, you do. Why do they like him? And he's like, many times resisted sending the army to confront the protesters. And I don't know if this is true or not, or false, but I actually remember February 11th, 2020, the vote of confidence for Hassan Diab, and I remember on the Blood Gate entrance to Parliament, for the first time in my life, finding out that we have different factions of the army, Maghawir Fuhud. So knowing that this guy apparently is a Fuhud tiger, I don't know how would you translate it.
I don't
Fuhud,
know either, but yeah.
like some kind of, feline.
But he's also the commander-in-chief.
He is now like can smile and can show like
yes,
can show this amiable personality is good.
So I agree, and he's charming enough, which is also new in the presidency. When he winks at his wife, when he, in a way, seems almost like he has a sense of humor at times. It's refreshing to have a military commander become human when entering politics and not become militant.
And some kind of charisma.
But that's Joseph Aoun. And I agree that these are the moments that we look at now. We define it as that's different. I say this with all due respect. Nawaf Salam's initial speech from Baabda and his comments since don't have that kind of, whatever you want to call it, charisma. He may, sometimes I feel like being a little too academic can also limit one's almost public performance. And this is not meant to denigrate or even judge the judge. It's more just to show that I don't feel the same way about Nawaf Salam. Now, again, it's too early.
I think this actually is the strength of the duo. We have a new duo, Nawaf and Joseph. I'm really against this law. Actually, there's a law in Parliament to subtract and remove all these titles. Ma'alik we need to get rid of that. But anyway, not to get sidetracked, I think the duo. I think we're facing a new duo, at least for the next year and a half or so, Nawaf and Joseph, where I think the strength, what you might be hinting to a weakness, could be Nawaf's strength.
Right.
Because I was thinking, before coming here, on the way here, what if the formal duo imposes the ministers? And specifically the finance minister. Now, I think we have to consult with, parliamentary experts and constitutional experts, and I'm none of those. But I think if the president, Joseph Aoun and Nawaf Salam, develop a structure, قانون داخلي لمجلس الوزراء, whereby we have specific deadlines for the formation of a cabinet, for the time that a draft law is sent and remains with a parliamentary bloc. And I know that these mechanisms were discussed especially by experts with Hussein al-Husseini. So if these are undusted and put back on the table, I think even with some deceptions in terms of who the ministers are, I think someone like Nawaf, because he's a man of law, because he's a judge, because this is his power, we're not gonna, I think everyone has their own role to play. We're not gonna ask, someone who is not good in finance to run a business. Like, everyone has their role. And I think this duo, by, having the charisma and the army, like hands-on, hands-on the ground, an local experience with a man of law, a thinker, someone who has achieved a lot and who knows the ins and outs, plus all the, let's say, the things that what we said earlier, how he ticks the boxes, would actually make this duo extremely powerful. At least this is my wishful thinking.
So, just to understand what you've just said, you need both in this current climate. Somebody who's confident in security affairs, naturally that's Joseph Aoun, and the fact that he is president under these warlike conditions too, he's tasked with implementing 1701 as it currently as we currently understand it, with the enforcement mechanism too. It's not July 2006.
No.
It's January 2025.
No.
A different scenario, one that is meant to prevent another war with Israel. And of course, the disarmament of Hezbollah south of the Litani, which has not happened yet in its fullest. That's the security front. And somebody who's mentioned things that are not used to. Neutrality from Ba'abda, and also, from Parliament in his inaugural address. Also, no reference to resistance, which is unusual in the last 2 decades. And as far as I know, the ministerial statement, as it emerges, will probably not make reference to resistance either. If it does, it would be surprising to me, and that may be a red flag. So that's Ba'abda, that's Joseph Aoun, that's the president. And that's the government I think we expect from an army commander with a Hezbollah that's on the decline. Nawaf Salam, according to what you're saying, if I understood you right, is not meant for that. He's meant for the administration side, not necessarily not the merging of security and politics the way it's played out in Lebanon. Nawaf Salam shouldn't get into that. He should be finding the best people meant for the job and focusing on that. Let Joseph Aoun be the security side, and let Nawaf Salam be the administration side. Did I get this right?
No, I disagree. No. I think you're, again, going into binaries.
And in terms of duo, what I was trying to...
Yeah.
What do you mean by Nawaf Salam being a duo to Joseph Aoun?
I mean, they seem, from what we see on the little that we see, they seem to be in accord. They seem to agree. They seem to know. I don't know if they know one another before this.
I think the first time they met, if I'm not mistaken, was in Ba'abda.
Okay, so I definitely see chemistry in the way things are happening. Stop smiling, Roni. That's the friend telling the friend to keep serious.
Yeah.
I think what I'm trying to say is that it's not because you follow a book, or like you take what the designate prime minister was saying, that I will go back to the Ta'if agreement and to the Dustur. I think this is a great weapon. I think this is a great weapon.
That's Joseph Aoun.
No.
Oh, you're talking about Nawaf
I'm talking about
now.
Nawaf.
Yes.
When Nawaf said that I will أنا بشكل حكومة.
Yes.
I will no, we haven't heard
I'm
that
not
before.
Post.
We haven't heard that before. So this is really, really new. And when he said we need to get rid of all these mustalahat, and this is very fresh. This is a blow. And to go back to what you're saying, so if I'm not mistaken, the Hezbollah, according to my sources, issued تكليف شرعي للذهاب إلى القرى الأمامية, meaning a couple of days ago when we had all these innocent people die, there was a religious mandate or fatwa to actually and this is, when you're losing, you want to do anything not to lose. الكلب الخطر شو بيقولوا الكلب اللي بيعوي ما بيعض. So basically, what are they going to say to their crowd? We have a war situation, and like every war, we have a winner and we have a loser. And I think it's very clear who the winner and the loser is here. What will this religious, ideological proxy party tell to their people or their followers who have lost their families, their homes. I mean, and who are now, left with no answer. Go back home, not go back home. What do we do? Their businesses were targeted, their homes, etc. So this war was a tragedy, but yet the losing party or the losing side is promoting it as a win. I don't know what kind of win.
That's on the Hezbollah
Yes.
side. Okay,
Yes.
we'll get into that in a little bit. I just want to find if there's any disagreement here on how we see these two characters.
Okay.
I think we flushed out Joseph Aoun enough. And honestly, he's new too. It's so new. I mean, he's going to be around for 6 years. We don't know how he will operate in a year, let alone when the government is formed. So maybe we're overestimating him. But I think we have enough of an understanding that he's new, he's inspiring enough, he's fresh. Yes, he's an army commander, but he's human too, charming to a degree. And I feel better with him in Ba'abda. Nawaf Salam, to both of us, is almost a friend. I mean, not necessarily a close friend, but we know him. We've had friendly occasions with him, social encounters with him. And that's also credit to him. He's accessible. I like that. And he's also an academic, which is not a bad thing. Maybe 2 PhDs is maybe something unique, but that doesn't mean that he's not. You can still talk to him about many things. He's not limited only to one subject. And short of being prime minister in the last few years, I thought of him as that clean outsider that a lot of us wanted to see as prime minister. Not just us, not just our immediate circles, also eventually the Lebanese forces woke up. They warmed up to him. At the first round in 2022, I think, it was white votes for Nawaf Salam. And then later, it became a serious decision on their side to endorse him. So that
why wouldn't they?
That's my point, exactly, that he clearly appeals to the civil society and opposition crowd. He doesn't appeal naturally to the March 8 crowd, or what's left of March 8, and primarily he never was Hezbollah's pick. That's a good thing to me. They did not want him in the Sarai. That's Nawaf Salam prior to this phase in his career. Now I think it's the hardest phase of his career.
Yeah, but we can't judge. I mean, we are sitting in Jamaizeh in a room while I'm sure that the man is working tirelessly, as he said, and he's not a bullshitter. I mean, he's in an extremely difficult position. I don't think he would have. Why would he leave? Why on earth would he just, give up his comfortable life?
No.
And what I'm saying is that he will use, I think, knowing him and knowing people around him.
Can I be more assertive?
Yeah.
Permission? Joseph Aoun instructed Hezbollah to show up at 5 o'clock.
Yes.
This could be performance. It doesn't matter. He said no to tomorrow. Come today. A small little thing, but that's standard procedure. I guess what I would like to hear from Nawaf Salam is nobody gets the Ministry of Finance because they're special.
But he said that.
Ministry of Finance?
He didn't say Ministry of Finance specifically, but he said no one will get ministries,
yeah, okay, but
including them. You want him to be more specific.
What I don't know if I'm reassured by is the week of caution and silence followed by.
Why a week? Well, first, I think the week of caution and silence. This is how he works.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think there's an agreement of secrecy between the duo. That's why I say duo. Between the president and the prime. I think there's and all these leaks are fake news.
Yeah. And he said so.
And he said so. And he was very assertive when he said, I'm listening to all. Like, they can't just come and do whatever they want. Like, it'll be a dictatorship.
No, I guess.
So I think that what would be interesting is to see how someone like Nawaf would use the law as his weapon, as his courage. This is how I think he can get them.
Yes, you're right. Had there been no serious obstacle like the Ministry of Finance, had that not been an issue, you're right. I would actually completely agree.
But he didn't subside. I mean, the reason why it's been taking 10 days, and we know that prior governments were cooked. I mean, the recipe would come with the delivery, right? It would just be there. So I don't think that the fact that it's taking 2 weeks now, 10 days is a drama, is dramatic. I mean, of course, we don't have time. He doesn't have time. The country doesn't have time.
My understanding is that under immense pressure, which was primarily private and turned public out of frustration, is that Nawaf Salam finally spoke about this issue. Didn't name it in particular, didn't say Ministry of Finance, but spoke about it, the whole thing. And then was vocal about it. But that was a week later. That's what I mean by I hesitate. Because of that extreme caution, I'm not as comfortable with the journey so far. And I fully acknowledge I can be surprised too, that we may see a very good government lineup emerge. But I have this frustration in that in moments of anxiety and turmoil and instability and post-war scenario, I want to feel a little more like things are moving in the right direction. I'm not there yet, at least, with the style, the leadership qualities that he brings to Lebanese politics. But I'm being very, very subjective here. I have a bad feeling, and I think all of us share to a degree, that without that kind of immense constant pressure, the Ministry of Finance would have already been given to, whether it's Yassine Jabir or somebody else, Harakat Amal. And the pressure is what's preventing it.
So where do you think the pressure is coming from?
I think us. I think, which may be a good thing. Maybe that's part of the story. I think he does listen to people that support him.
I mean, for me, he's one of us.
Right. Now, without that pressure, I'm maybe a little more worried.
Well, I think there's internal pressure now coming from us, whoever we identify us.
As in the coalition that brought him in.
Yes. And also maybe external pressure.
External pressure, if I could figure it out.
I was listening very briefly to the news before coming here.
Very briefly to the news? Is that
very briefly?
Briefly. I think you said very briefly.
No.
Because I was listening to the very
briefly,
I was listening to very
briefly
a few hours ago.
According to Reuters, there's American pressure to make sure that the finance ministry is not under Amal and Hezbollah's dominance. And also I think there's like a lot of layers to that. First, we know that these two men have been part of the problem which led to the financial collapse. Like even on a meritocracy base,
Which two men?
The two candidates you mentioned.
No, Yassine Jabir is the only one that I've heard from Harakat Amal so far.
Okay, so I think on a meritocracy...
Mansour is the other guy. We sent Mansour.
Meritocracy criteria, I don't think Nawaf or the president would put someone who's contributed to the problem. Now, I'm not a judge, and I'm not here to, give judgment on matters that require a lot of investigation and consistency. But I think, these names for me aren't foreign, and I'm not in finance, but we all know that they were part of the problem, not just politically, but also financially and technically and professionally. So I think it would be, shooting yourself in the head to designate someone who was part of the problem, if you're talking about meritocracy and the right person for the right job. That's one. Two, I think the duo or whoever, Nawaf or Joseph or, anyone is really aware that we're in a very, very, we're in a scandalous situation where I think we've reached rock bottom. For me, that's a personal feeling. And without, sadly, foreign aid support, we're not gonna make it. I mean, infrastructurally, this place is crumbling. Socially, it's crumbling. The lawlessness is appalling. What happened in the South is, so I think without this structure, without investments and help, I think we're doomed. And I don't think, these men are dumb. So now, on the other hand, will the prime minister face a vote of non-confidence? I don't know.
That's the scenario I don't want him to face, and that's where I kind of
vote of non-confidence.
I don't want him to fail. I want Nawaf Salam to succeed, and I think it's the majority that brought him in that should have the bigger say, not the minority that opposes him. In other words. This merging of opposition and civil society, which is unusual, at least in the last 4 years, 3 years, it's hard to have seen the 13 or so of the change bloc change the candidacy.
I mean, that's great. And for all those who, say, and that's like personal vendetta, what the hell have you done? You've done nothing. To the...
Yeah.
I call it revolution. You want to call it hirak, uprising, whatever. I think because this movement brought revolutionary ideas on a social and cultural level. So that's why I call it revolution. But that's another discussion. I think for these people to have... the name of Nawaf was mentioned by his students during the protests. And I know that he's been... at least in his ideas, with his close circle, friends, family, supporting a lot of movements that have emerged in the last 15, 20 years towards different things, a different future for this place that we call Lebanon. So for the mere fact that someone who was voiced as the savior, no one is a savior, but someone who was voiced by the people on the street at Martyr Square to be the next prime minister when Saad al-Hariri stepped down, and for this person, 5 years later, to be now in that position, because these people found a way to work together despite their differences, and the opposition as well, formed by parties that I find disgraceful, to have people who were part of the Civil War be in politics now, to come together and to say, we're going to push for this person, and for this person, like, we succeeded. Yes, I'm very happy.
Right. So Nawaf Salam becomes a very overnight story. Brahim Naimne finds a way to put his name in and remove it and endorse Nawaf Salam. And within hours, Fouad Makhzoumi withdraws his candidacy. And then you have, which I think was the missing ingredient all along, a majority coalition of people that don't like each other in politics but can agree to the bigger things.
That's politics.
And that's politics for the bigger stuff.
Yes.
The nitty-gritty, you don't have to agree.
No.
I don't expect Brahim Naimne and Fouad Makhzoumi to agree to anything on economics. But they should be able to both endorse Nawaf Salam, and they did.
Yeah.
Add to that, you mentioned the Civil War stuff. Lebanese forces and Free Patriotic Movement and Brahim Naimne and the 13 and the majority of the story, 84 or so MPs, majority of parliament, a big majority, votes for Nawaf Salam.
I think because also the alternative was a disaster.
Well, no, the alternative was Najib Miati, who probably would have won.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So in other words, it's good that Lebanese politics was local, and it pointed at the best of the options available, and the majority of those became Nawaf Salam. That's a good story. For me, it's positive. There's no denying that. I guess what I'm talking about is, from that moment and the last 3 weeks, give or take, the number, I forget exactly how many days it's been, I would have liked to see some of the uncomfortable stuff, meaning reassure the communalism stuff. Go meet the other prime ministers. Go meet the mufti. do the stuff that Nawaf Salam is not naturally good at, just to show
Well,
that
he did, to his defense, he did visit the former prime ministers on day 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Did he? I
Yes.
didn't see any.
Yes, he visited his cousin. He visited his. I believe he visited two former prime ministers. We have to check.
I didn't see any mention of Fuad Senora, even though they're friendly.
I think we should. Look.
Okay, then it's a positive sign. I didn't see that.
I'm happy he didn't go see the Mufti, to be honest. And this doesn't surprise me. And also, I think we go back to Lebanon is a small place. It's like a village. Sectarianism and how to get rid of it or not. But I'm for getting rid of it. There are some... You can't change everything, like Jimi Hendrix, I want to change the world and I want to change it now. Maybe you can do that in a song or if you're on the street. But institutions change at a much longer pace than human individuals.
You're right, but I agree with you about the Mufti, and I don't want personally to have a relationship with God. But Nawaf Salam coming in from this whole period of time where the community itself feels a void, it's not being filled. Whether or not we like him or not, Saad Hariri would win 95% maybe if he comes back tomorrow.
But Nawaf is part of the community, but he's removed from it.
He's removed,
and I think.
But can I just add one more thing?
Yeah, sure.
What I'm talking about is real opposition to the paralysis in government.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm getting at is when Harakat Amal and sends their intelligentsia, the Hezbollah crowd, sends their intelligentsia to say the finance ministry belongs to us. Whether that means Shia or Harakat Amal and Hezbollah.
Yeah, what happened the next day? It doesn't belong to them, and he didn't give it to them.
You're right. You're, as of now, he's not.
Yes.
But I'm not saying it right. I would have liked to see a little more Lebanese assertion, not the careful, cautious judge. Maybe I'm talking about, at the end of the day, what a lot of people don't like anymore, leadership. In the Lebanese sense, but I'm not talking about friend here. The friend, I would rather have the current version. But in politics, I don't know if I would want that. There has to be a way to unlock the stranglehold in politics. War unlocked the security stranglehold Hezbollah has on the country. There has to be a peaceful, local Lebanese way to unlock their stranglehold in politics. I don't know if the careful judge alone is enough to do that. I think what you're saying about the duo is necessary. Joseph Aoun and Nawaf Salam have to be completely in check with each other. They have to be aligned.
And so far as we know, they are. As far as we know,
but I can imagine Joseph Aoun frustrated.
You're going into speculations.
The Liban Post message,
I don't know.
I have a feeling it was about Joseph Aoun. It wasn't about Hezbollah or Harakat Amal. I have a bad feeling.
I have no way of knowing.
Yeah, me neither.
We weren't there, so we can't speculate.
You're right.
So would you have wanted like the army to go on the street maybe after the partisans of Amal and Hezbollah raided the streets?
That's a good question. Clearly, a caretaker or prime minister-designate cannot.
Yes. I don't even think that a designated prime minister can have any say in the violations of the ceasefire. I don't even know if Nawaf Salam has read the ceasefire agreement.
I hope he has.
Not that he doesn't want to, but like knowing the how the ceasefire agreement was brought to life and the ins and outs of the gangs of New York, the way some people understand politics here. I mean, it's not a supermarket.
The ceasefire, I think he's probably at least tuned in. I think Joseph Aoun probably knows it better because he's gone through it. That's been his role. But you're right about the protests. I don't know.
I don't know either.
But I would have liked
I don't know
if you
either.
can't do anything,
Yeah.
I would have liked for him to say something that reassures. And you're right. I live in this neighborhood. I trust that they will go in and out and there'll be no repercussion. But that's because I'm hoping for the best case scenario. I want to have a leader that says this is unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't know if he was blunt in the way he talked about that.
I can't remember if I don't remember hearing him say something specifically about this parade. But let's keep drastic measures to where they are really needed. And I think having the army now, imposing the army in the south on the border is much more significant than having the army in Beirut. I mean, what would that...
No. I think the army should not have a role in arresting kids on scooters. I agree with you. There should be a far less dramatic way. But if you're not going to do it, say something. That's maybe the part that I look for. But you're right about going to the south. Let's go.
Wait. Before going to the south, you were saying, can he do it alone? It's the duo. It's the pressure. It's internal pressure, us, external pressure. And also, remember when we first met, we did the interview in 2022. I told you that الثورة المضبوطة بالجنوب. And I go back to that. We need to, if we want to, we need to support and encourage and empower the independent Shia voices. Because sadly, I think that's also me growing older, I think change will come from within. And I think the most important MPs next elections in 2026 will be sadly to say Shia MPs. I mean, I really don't like to think this way. I hope that the law will be changed, upgraded. I don't know if it's realistic with everything that we have to do, but I really think that the new Shia MPs next year, 2026, we need to support them. We need to work with them to get them to parliament. And they are strong, and they are also diverse, and they are also on a spectrum of left and right and center, and resistance, but not Hezbollah, or no resistance at all, like their position towards Israel. Like, they are very diverse, but we need to support them. And I think with them, and I think many of them, as far as I know, were involved in getting Nawaf to where he is now, and are still involved at the moment.
We'll go to the south, and there's one thing I'd like to add before we go there, and you reminded me. Before recording, we were joking about the technicalities of the Doha Agreement, and to sum it up, really the long-lasting effect of it is the forced national unity story that we lived through, which means a paralyzed government. In essence. Not national unity as in not communities getting along, living together. No, it's political unity. Mm-hmm. And that means Hezbollah and Amal, but Hezbollah by force, could get the blocking third, which has no foundational... There's nothing there in terms of either tradition or legality.
That's where you have the man of law saying, F you. There's no legality, there's no tradition to that.
Well, okay, so there's that, the blocking third. I have good feelings towards Nawaf Salam, not accepting that again. I would be surprised if he succumbed to the blocking third. I'm hoping, and I think I'm right, that he will throw this away completely.
And worst comes to worst, what I was trying to get through earlier is that if an internal mechanism structuring the deadlines for accepting decrees, or how the Prime Minister office works, having deadlines for dates and limits, even with a paralyzing minister, we can bypass this paralyzing element.
But let's say...
So this is, I'm not an expert on that, but from what I understand is that there are mechanisms, and I think someone like Nawaf, if, worst comes to worst, will be able to find ways to impose this internal regulation for the ministry to bypass the ta'til,
let's hope and let's assume at least that he won't consider a blocking third. I hope he doesn't. I have a good feeling he won't. The other part of the Doha Agreement, and by the way, the blocking third is really the veto capabilities at coup d'etats in the government, meaning delegitimizing the government whenever Hezbollah sees it fit. And they've done that before.
Of course.
The other one is the Ministry of Finance, at least since 2014, has been. It's a byproduct of forced national unity.
Of course.
Mohammed Safadi is the sectarian figure that is Sunni but working with Amal and co. as a finance minister, or at least supported by Amal and Hezbollah. But since 2014, it's been their domain. I want to ask you whether or not you think this is a good way of measuring success so far. If Nawaf Salam lets the finance ministry become in a way a permanent place for Amal, Hezbollah, or sectarianism. The Shia sect, that's that. For me, if he does this, it would be a big red flag, and I think that would be a first failure. And a big one too.
No, on a personal level,
and
I would...
one more thing, it would also be a permanent scar to the groups that brought him in. What is the difference now?
I totally agree. I really, as a friend, as a citizen, I'm asking him. And I think this is everyone's plea to not succumb to this de facto finance minister. And because what is at stake is humongous. It's not just a sect or a position. It's the financial meltdown of a whole nation, and this is not okay. This is not okay. And if Amal and Hezbollah want to do politics, let them go to the opposition.
I completely agree. Okay, so we see that
Yes.
that would be not just a red flag, but a moment of objection.
Of course.
Okay.
Definitely.
I agree with you that let them go to the opposition.
Yes.
Nawaf Salam has the majority.
Yes.
He should be able to govern without them.
Yes.
I completely agree. And anyway, there should be oppositions are standard in most countries.
Of course.
Most whatever you want to call this, democracy.
Of course. Let us know. Do you want to be thugs playing with guns on the street, or do you want to work with politics and have legitimate representation and play by the games? Opposition. Sometimes you're in power, sometimes you're not, and you oppose the ruling parties.
Let me bring it to the south, and I want to touch on a few things here. The first is that clearly the war. The violence is not over. A few days ago, 25 Lebanese are killed. We can discuss day and night why those Lebanese were there at that moment. We can talk about Hezbollah. We can talk about the Lebanese army. We can talk about resistance or just people being thrown to the wolves. And maybe at the end of the day, it's many things at once. It's a bad group. It's a bad combination of ingredients that leads to civilian deaths. What I know for sure is that the Lebanese army is abiding by the ceasefire deal. Mm-hmm. And areas under the Lebanese army's protection are working better, as of now, than trouble spots that are still being fought over to a degree by the Israelis and Hezbollah's withdrawal, because Hezbollah has to leave the south. That's part of the ceasefire deal. Hezbollah remaining in the south will, in a way, force a situation on all of us, not just Nawaf Salam, the whole country, and that we will continue to have an Israeli occupation of sorts in the south.
We have an occupation now.
Right now, we have Israeli occupying forces in the
Yes.
south. Absolutely. The whole point is to get them out.
Yes.
Getting them out is not through Hezbollah, it's through the army. Joseph Aoun has his limits too.
Of course.
Hezbollah has its interests too. And I worry that this is the pressure on government, that they can increase the temperature now when they need to get things in return. That's the kind of dilemma that I see Nawaf Salam entering, and I don't want him to fail there. I want him to succeed. That requires, in my opinion, some confrontation politically to what that group is doing. right now. That said, the whole point of having Security Council resolutions and ceasefires is to prevent further pain, and 1701 should have been implemented nearly 20 years ago.
Of course.
Hezbollah should not have been in the south, and Hezbollah should not have gotten involved in Israeli-Palestinian fights, whether it's Hamas and Netanyahu or whoever. The fact that Hezbollah opened the door to this and paid a huge price for it too, took Lebanon down with it.
Yeah.
This was the whole story of not going back to war. Yet, Hezbollah was never meant to be a peaceful transition to prosperity. It became Iran's military outreach and designed for limited war, not permanent war. And they got themselves.
I think 2006 was the beginning of the end for them, and we might have spoken about that and disagreed. But now it's the end of the end. For me, at least in the military sense, and now perhaps they will have to go back to maybe going back to previous forms of manifesting. I won't use the word resistance. Manifesting on the land, whereby if you're still engaged in this, and this is not. We always go into binaries, and if you're going to air this part, I see criticisms from friends, from social platforms. You can be, like we were saying, like I was trying to explain to my friends in the US, I can be a non-Zionist and a critique of Israel without necessarily agreeing to what happened on October 7th. I don't have to be with Hamas to be against Zionism or to say that the establishment of Israel is a crime against humanity. I can say that what happened in Gaza is a genocide, but also critique the Palestinian Authority and Hamas. Like, let's get out of these binaries. So it's up to them. Do they want to continue, guarding, being a guerrilla force, helping the army? Why? Your friend the doctor said, and I can't even believe that I'm quoting this person, but instead of having the weapons destroyed by Israel or confiscated, give them to the Lebanese army. I mean, it's dumb, but it's straightforward. Why not? Why not?
Doctor's orders. I love that this you did that once with Dalal Mawad too, and I love that moment. The audience turned against me when you're like, "You're Fred," and they're like, "Boo!" I didn't say anything.
No, that's just me teasing.
I love that. Yeah, that's what I love. I live for that stuff. My friend is now a progressive reformer, state believer, and endorsed Nawaf Salam.
Well, good. We changed him too.
Actually, I think people adjusted themselves to compromise and coalition. And that to me is always essential. But going back to the South, I don't know if, and you mentioned this already, but I'll push further. I don't know if you'll ever get the kind of independent Shia votes and MPs that you want. I think we've gone through this already. There's no need for that, in my opinion, to try to wedge out another movement amongst Shia voters. Mm-hmm. I think Shia Lebanese expressed themselves as Lebanese for a long time. The opponents to Hezbollah in the early days were liquidated. They tended to be left-leaning, if not far left, if not communist, outright communist. But those kinds of leftist outfits, at least in the South, are now token.
I would have to disagree. I don't think we have left and right in Lebanon.
Sorry, you're right. I meant the...
In economic terms.
And the non-Hezbollah, even resistance outfits, they're gone, all of them. Harakat Amal went from being anti-Hezbollah to pro-Hezbollah by force, and that exists until today. And the independent Shia voters are like independent Christians and independent Sunnis and whatever, independent Druze. They are independent pre-elections, and they become dependent post-elections for the most part, with the exception of people like us that don't see eye to eye with this stuff. But for the most part, I think most independent Shia voters are still going to vote for Amal and Hezbollah.
Why?
Okay. The same reason why they vote for the FPM and the Lebanese forces, and the same reason.
Fear? We go back to fear?
No. Or even the
Fear
future movement and whatever's left of it. I don't know if it's fear or anything like that. I think these are groups that are still on their journey of reform in their way. Some are ahead of others. And some may even surprise us later at how far they can go, especially now that Hezbollah as a military outfit has diminished. The Lebanese forces today is very different than it was a few years ago, and is dramatically different than it was decades ago. I think all parties can go on that journey in different ways. There's no reason why Harakat Amal should remain the same way it is, with or without Birri. And going further, I don't know if asking for new groups to emerge under these circumstances is a fair ask. I think it's better to get these older, wiser Lebanese groups to reform. I would like to see a different Harakat Amal.
I mean,
I'll say one more thing, a very different Hezbollah. I would like to have a Hezbollah that's not Wafi Safa, but that it's average Lebanese, southern or whatever. They don't have to be from the south. They can just simply want a better country. That for me is enough. Why force a new thing? Or why try to take ideas that are better in Ashrafiyya and force them in the south?
Okay, so I would like to see a reformed everyone. But also I would like to remind you and myself that, and I hope this is not part 2, what happened at the end of the Civil War is unacceptable. No accountability. Afa Allah an ma mada. I really despise this sentence. So there is, for me, there should be some accountability. No justice, no peace.
He went to jail.
Yeah.
For
they should have all gone to jail, or at least be in exile, indefinite exile, and not allowed to practice politics.
Aoun was in exile 15 years.
Yeah.
Amin Jmail went out.
And the others?
You're right.
So that's one.
Right. Yeah.
So that's one. 2, of course, the idea is for everyone to reform and these political parties to actually become proper political parties representing diversity. Why can't we have Hezbollah with Shia, Druze, Sunna, Orthodox? Why not? But also, why not these voices, these alternative voices? Every time maybe this is something, if you criticize a community here, you're like, why are you entitled to criticize it? You're not from it, you don't understand. And I've reported this to you a couple of years ago. Every time that I would, ask someone from the South, okay, you're disenchanted with the current, rule of affairs, but yet you'll vote for them. They're like, انت مش من الجنوب ما بتعرف شو يعني الواحد يعيش تحت احتلال إسرائيلي. And all the memories that people recount. So yes, I do not know, we do not know. And I understand that this threat of death, of war, is much more vivid to someone living by the border than someone living in Mint al-Hassan like me, or like you in Jamaiza, or anyone in Beirut, or someone in diaspora. So I do understand this visceral fear of this enemy based on past experiences, past traumas, and also the direction of this country that is called Israel. So I understand that. That's why I think having people from within, encouraging, it's like you're holding the hand of a child and teaching them how to walk towards a different direction.
So I'll give you more blunt examples. There aren't that many people that I identify with. بس في حدا مثل جورج عيس من زحلة مجتمع مدني جاي من أبو ظبي فات بالانتخابات ربح, and I like him.
Great.
I actually think he's one of the 13 at heart. I think he's also very Lebanese forces in sectarianism. But that's the kind of thing that works in Lebanon.
Why not?
Yeah. A clean, honest, decent MP who could be a minister too. Kamil Abu Sulaiman, this former Lebanese minister, lawyer. Haida, for me, is a success story. I like him, and he's also Lebanese forces. He's not young, but he's clean, honest, and respects the law and is out of step with war. That, for me, is good. Anaya Azzeddin, تبع حركة أمل. People maybe over-exaggerate her, maybe, in that she's a woman, and that's enough. No, she's actually a decent person too, and I'd rather have her as the face of Harakat Amal long term, and I think Amal would be better with her. That's what I'm trying to get at. The Sami Jmail today is very different than Bashir Jmail of yesterday. Maybe the voice and the tone is familiar, but what Sami Jmail wants in Lebanon is not war. He's not looking for war. He's actually probably like us in most interests. He's a Jmail, but he's young and he is friendlier with civil society types than he is with the old guard. I like that. For me, that's progress. That's what I mean. Reform the parties. I'd rather have a Kataib that currently exists and not have to try to force in a new Christian group that is better at civil society. That maybe goes back to what we talked about last time, a few years ago. Why something like Beirut Medinati remains a local story, not a national one. I think that somewhere in there you have the good people trying, for the most part, good people. And then you have this national gravity, this lethargic way of governing. And then you have the old story of Lebanon. And I don't expect Shia to be any different than Sunnis or Druze or whatever. They have these parties. These parties represent a huge history, and I think they could behave better, and I think they will as time passes. That for me is the struggle, not let us show you by trying to force a new way of doing politics that only gets maybe 1% at best. That was tried in 2022. We know people that ran in 2022. We know how badly they lost. I don't know if it would be different now. I think Hezbollah would still win the majority of votes. I think Harakat Amal would win the second largest. And you'll have one or two outliers, maybe. But I don't know if that's really the story. I mean,
we'll have a different Hezbollah for sure next time.
A better Hezbollah.
We hope. I hope.
A less war-oriented group.
Exactly. But then how do you, if the core of can you change the core, and the core being ideological core and a group that's responsible of killing many of those who like, I'm sorry, this is maybe a sensitive topic, like maybe on the short term I would like to see what you're saying, good decent human beings in these parties, but why not for others? I mean, parties reform and form, and don't we hope for a multi-sectarian party, like truly, whether it's one of the old ones or a new one? And also don't forget the generational conflict.
Multi-sectarian party, I don't think is easy in this country, even if things are fine. Multi-sectarian coalition seems to work. Nawaf Salam won with the sectarian majority. That to me is also...
What do you mean the sectarian majority?
The overwhelming majority of Christian MPs, of Sunni MPs at the end, and Druze, and whatever you want to call the others in terms of minorities, voted for Nawaf Salam and he won. That to me is legitimate. It's not...
But my question to Amal and Hezbollah, why don't you want someone like Nawaf Salam?
And I completely agree, because that to me...
If you are to, and we know this is bollocks. If you're for the Palestinian cause, I mean, who better? If this is the argument, who better?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. Nawaf Salam is far more important in condemnation of Israel than any Hezbollah rocket launched from Lebanon. I completely agree with you. I completely agree, but that shows you also, you're 100% right. These are not Lebanese, these are not natural expressions of Lebanon.
No.
Hezbollah is Iran.
Yes.
As a military outfit, it's Iran. It's what Iran wants. Not what Lebanese need, it's what Iran wants. I hope to see a Hezbollah that is better reflective of reform-minded Lebanese in my lifetime. That to me would be a bigger achievement than getting one alternative MP squeezed in the South.
If we're talking about sectarianism and representation, they have the right to be represented. And if these two parties claim that they represent the majority and they represent them, well, they have the right to represent the opposition or the minority. They have the right, because we know that they exist, and they have the right to be heard.
I agree. And it's not mutually exclusive. You can have untested MPs from alternative groups or individuals, and you can have the big parties reforming too. Both should happen.
People are unhappy. They're not, they don't have their rights. They're unhappy. They're misrepresented. They're bullied. They're affiliated to a group who kills. So,
hopefully, Nawaf Salam and Joseph Aoun, the duo, and Joseph Aoun's maybe tenure is going to be longer. I hope that the duo appreciates this moment in time where all of us want a better country. And I hope they meet the expectation, and I hope we see it happen soon.
I hope so too, in our lifetime.
Yeah. And I wanted to talk to you before the cabinet formation. I wanted to do this before things are sort of a little clearer. I like getting into the murky waters with you.
I really hope that our hopes are fulfilled on a, as someone who loves Lebanon, I think we've had enough. And I'll tell Nawaf, have the courage that Ron is asking you to have.
Wow, then, please forward him the file. Sarah Yassine, thank you.
Thank you, Ron.